Thank you, Jan, for the introduction, and thank you all here for having me talking to you. It's a hard change of topic now from stroke to aneurysm treatment. It's my conflict of interest. So how to enhance effectiveness of flow diverter treatment? I think I'm going to try to cover that in very few moments, very quickly. So going to give some idea where we are with flow diverter treatment right now. Going to show some of the reasons why flow diverter treatment may fail, and going to give some ideas on how to get rid of these problems causing flow diversion failure. So flow diversion in general, where are we? I think, and that's true for most of us, that the introduction of flow diverters rapidly changed how we treat aneurysms, and that over a rather short course of time, because a lot of cases that we usually used to treat with stents and coils, or only with coils or balloon remodels coiling, are now treated with flow diversion. And this effect actually is quite big, and it's probably a bit different from center to center, but if you look in the data, and that's like 10 years ago, so quite a long time, in the Mayo Clinic, they, at that time, so 10 years ago, already were at 20% flow diverter of all aneurysm cases, and they had a 50% reduction in stent-assisted coiling. And if I think about my department, I would say that holds true for me as well, until now up to 20–25% flow diverters. And of course there are diseases or problems that are now treated with flow diversion where stent-assisted coiling was not a good option. Probably new entities that we can treat, but obviously most of the cases were treated in a different way before. I don't know, Jan, in your department, what would you say, flow diverter treatment around that? So, a big change in daily practice. It's been proven quite good that flow diversion is very effective for unruptured aneurysms of the anterior circulation. There are several meta-analyses, and you will see, no matter what study you look at, around 80, 85, 90% occlusion at 3 to 5 years. That does mean, on the opposite, that 10, maybe 15% of aneurysms are not completely occluded after flow diverter treatment. But in general, it's a good treatment, and it's a rather safe treatment. So if you go back in history of flow diversion, beginning from 10, 15, 20% of major complications, we're now down to around 5% ischemic problems and 1 to 3% hemorrhagic complications, depending on what you read. So that's comparable to other endovascular techniques to treat aneurysms. And then obviously, like with all the devices, as we've seen in stroke before today, there was a strong development in flow diverters themselves. So now microflow diverters going through 0017 microcasseters can be used easily in beyond circle of Willis aneurysms. That's something rather new compared to flow diverters that initially were made for carotid aneurysms. Flow diverters are also very effective for dissecting aneurysms, no matter what, ruptured or unruptured. At least now with the coatings, they're more and more used in ruptured aneurysms, although there's no clear data on that until now. And then you may know that we see a lot of coatings coming to the market. There's HPC coating, Shield, Heal, and some others, and they may have a strong impact on how flow diverters are used, which platelets are given. But until now, it's not so much clear how this field is going to move. You know that Phenox is running a study on the coating versus non-coated flow diverters, but it's still recruiting patients, so we don't know by now what will be the results. So if flow diversion fails, why does it fail? One reason can be we treated bifurcation aneurysms and overstented major branching arteries. Persistent branching arteries like fetal PCOMs can be a reason why they fail. The retraction of the flow diverter itself, so the flow diverter after implantation has moved, can be a reason. Actually, the vessel geometry itself, so how the curvature is, which angles you treat, may impact on the effectiveness. And one point we're going to show an example of my clinic is something that I don't really know how to deal with in all cases, and I've seen this several times, is a flow diversion treatment of a partially thrombosed aneurysm that then, with dual entry platelets, refills and gives a remnant or a second bleeding. So just from the literature, and that's very clear, very strong PCOM flow, half year after treatment, the aneurysm is completely there, completely in place. This is flow diverter retraction. You can see flow diverter was placed here under the PCOM. It moved down a little, and the aneurysm remnant is still there. That's, in my mind, something very typical you can see after flow diverter treatment. And this, particularly if you have embryonic origin fetal PCOM, you may think about either coil this or do stent-assisted coiling or whatever, but if you do flow diversion alone, you have a very, very strong inflow into the aneurysm. Just to show you an example of what I just said with this partially thrombosed aneurysms case that presented my clinic last year, a young male patient with SAH from this PCOM aneurysm, looked like, for me at least, dissecting posterior circulation aneurysm, PCA aneurysm on the right. I treated it with coiling and flow diverter. It's a HPC P48. And I was quite happy with the result. There was good flow, aneurysm was occluded, and the patient went under dual antiplatelets. 6 weeks after, he came back with rebleeding, and the angio depicted this refilling of the initially completely thrombosed part of the aneurysm where I couldn't pack coils in. So the point is that probably the only thing you can do then is to retreat. This is just to show you, it's a very small flow diverter, 2.5 by 15. It's an easy retreatment, but in my mind, the only thing you can do besides parent artery occlusion, which you may not like to do in this situation. And now, after treatment, and now after 18 months, he was just back to the next control in my clinic. It's fine, and the aneurysm is gone. But I still feel this is a problem, and I don't have a perfect solution. It's probably a better point of discussion. So, what to do? I think the first and most important thing is to rethink about indications. So, if you have fetal PCOM or bifurcation aneurysms, think twice before you just put a flow diverter. There are some cases where you should combine with coils, I think. One point that is pretty much under-investigated in my mind is the time course and the course of aneurysm thrombosis that you see with different platelet treatments. So if you stop dual, go to mono, and we know from the studies that after 3 and 5 years, we still have enhancing numbers of occluded aneurysms. So sometimes, don't be afraid too much if you see in the first control the aneurysm is still there, so it may still occlude over time. One point that is, I think, quite important, and which I tell to my consultants in my clinic always is, if you want to treat something with a flow diverter, imagine there will be a remnant or rest or no treatment effect at all, so what will you do after that? In my mind, the only thing you can really do is put another flow diverter or put more flow diverters, even a second or third. Obviously, you can still completely occlude, but this is sometimes simply impossible. So, and then there's one more thing. If you take a look in the literature, the problem is that even if you use flow diverters to retreat failure after initial flow diversion, you will have very, very low rates of complete occlusion. Because usually the reason for the not working flow diverter will not go away. If you take a look at this fetal PCOM, you say the aneurysm is still there, you put a second flow diverter, fetal PCOM will remain. So there will still be a strong flow, and that's the reason why this retreatment of initially failed flow diversion usually is not so super successful. So how to maximize the effect? First, with thinking, best possible indication, maybe simulation with flow simulation, that could be actually a very good point for CFD in the future, can give us a better idea on if branching arteries will remain so much flow that the flow diverting effect is too low or not. And then just one thing, I'm going to show you the paper because I found it very interesting. You may use certain types of flow diverters for intended straightening of the vessel and enhance occlusion rates with this. And of course, and I told you before, we are waiting for study data. Maybe next year we're going to see the first good data coming. Coatings will also have an impact on what we're doing, and it may also impact the occlusion rates. There's certainly other stuff, and I think we can discuss about that. And just to give you an idea, because I found it quite interesting myself, from the group of Chabel Monayer from Limoges in France, they investigated failed versus totally occluded aneurysms after flow diverter treatment. And what they found is that those aneurysms where you had a more effective straightening of the vessel, as you see lower rows of images. So you see from F to H that the angle gets straighter. These aneurysms are always totally occluded. So if, like in the upper row of images, you have no angle change and the angle is rather steep, that usually goes along with the remaining flow to the aneurysm. And that is what they found here. So a significant difference between the parent artery straightening, so stronger straightening occlusion, no straightening, remaining aneurysm. And that is easy to say from the retrospective because they then knew how straight the vessel is. It's quite hard, I would say, to translate into a prospective design, but we can also discuss. And with this, I hope I pronounced right. Come on, and thank you very much.
Thank you for the excellent lecture. So, any questions?